Captain Kim Dae-ho pressed his palm against the cold metal wall of the colony ship last dawn. Through the thick glass window, Earth looked like a tiny blue marble floating in the black ocean of space. He had been staring at it for hours, watching his home world get smaller and smaller until it was just another dot of light among millions. The bridge around him buzzed with quiet activity. His crew worked at their stations, but nobody talked much anymore. What was there to say? They were the last humans to leave Earth, and they were never coming back. Park So-min sat at the communications desk, her fingers dancing over the controls as she listened to the final messages from home. Her eyes were red from crying, but she kept working. That was what humans did. They kept going even when everything seemed hopeless. "Captain," she said softly, "the consortium ships are still following us. They want to make sure we go where they told us to go." Dae-ho nodded. The Galactic Consortium had made their decision clear. Humans were too dangerous to live among the other species. Too violent. Too unpredictable. Too different. After just 50 years of contact with alien civilizations, the trial was over. The verdict was exile. 50,000 people packed into a ship meant for 30,000. Families crowded into storage rooms, children sleeping in hallways, old people who would die before seeing another world. All because the galaxy was afraid of what humans might do. Lee Jun-ho looked up from his navigation station. "Sir, our course is locked toward the Terminus sector. The consortium won't let us change direction." The Terminus sector. Dae-ho had heard the whispers about that place. It was where the galaxy sent species they wanted to forget about. A graveyard of civilizations that had been judged unworthy. Ships went in, but they never came out. Chief Engineer Choi Hye-jin wiped sweat from her forehead as she studied her screens. The ship's systems were already showing strain. "Captain, our life support is working overtime. With this many people, we have maybe 6 months of air and water. 8 if we start cutting rations now." 6 months. Dae-ho felt the weight of 50,000 lives pressing down on him. Mothers holding babies who would never see their first birthday. Children who would never grow up. Teenagers like young Kim Soo-ah, who spent her days playing violin in the observation deck trying to keep everyone's spirits up with her music. The irony was bitter. Humans had dreamed of the stars for thousands of years. They had built rockets and space stations, reaching toward the infinite black hoping to find friends among the cosmos. When the first alien ship arrived at Earth, people had celebrated. Finally, they were not alone. But the celebration didn't last long. The other species in the galaxy were old and careful. They had rules about everything: how to speak, how to trade, how to solve problems. They called it civilization, but to Dae-ho it felt more like a cage. Humans asked too many questions. They moved too fast. They fought too much. When the colony, ship New Horizon, had defended itself against space pirates, the consortium called it an act of aggression. When human traders had refused to follow unfair contracts, they were labeled as rebels. When human scientists had made breakthroughs that took other species centuries to achieve, they were seen as a threat. The trial had lasted only 3 days. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in judgment, while a handful of human diplomats tried desperately to defend their entire race. The charges were simple. Humans were incompatible with galactic peace. The solution was even simpler: removal. "We're not the first," Dr. Han Min-seo said quietly from her science station. She was reading files about the Terminus sector, studying what little information existed about the ships that had been sent there before. 17 other species have been exiled to that region in the last 1,000 years. "What happened to them?" asked So-min. Min-seo shook her head. "Nobody knows. The consortium stops tracking ships once they enter the Terminus boundary. Officially, they're listed as missing. Unofficially." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Dae-ho walked to the center of the bridge and looked at his crew. These were good people. Smart, brave, dedicated. They had volunteered to captain humanity's exodus because someone had to do it. Because, even in exile, humans took care of their own. "Sir," Jun-ho called out, "we're approaching the edge of consortium space. Once we cross that line, we're on our own." on their own. 50,000 humans drifting toward a region of space where unwanted species went to disappear. Their ship was already failing, their supplies running low, their future uncertain. The galaxy had spoken. Humanity was not welcome among the stars. But as Deho looked around at his crew, still working, still fighting, still hoping, he felt something the consortium had never understood about humans. They were survivors. They adapted. They endured. Even when the entire galaxy turned against them, they kept moving forward. The last dawn crossed into the void, carrying humanity toward whatever waited in the darkness. Behind them, the civilized galaxy continued its ancient, careful dance among the stars. Ahead lay the unknown, but humans had never been afraid of the unknown. It was what made them dangerous. It was also what made them human. 3 months had passed since the last dawn entered the terminus sector. The ship felt like a tomb now. People moved quietly through the corridors, their faces thin from reduced food rations. The air recyclers worked constantly, making a low humming sound that never stopped. Everyone knew they were dying slowly. Scanner operator Nam Jin-woo sat at his station, staring at the same empty readings he had seen for weeks. Nothing but black space and distant stars. No planets, no asteroids, no signs of life. Just the endless void where unwanted species came to fade away. Then his screen flickered. Jin-woo blinked hard and looked again. There was something massive on the long-range sensors. Something impossible. "Captain," he called out, his voice shaking. "You need to see this right now." Captain Kim Dae-ho hurried over to the scanner station. The rest of the bridge crew gathered around as Jin-woo pointed at his screen. "It's huge, sir. Bigger than anything I've ever seen. And it's moving toward us." The main view screen activated, showing what their sensors had found. Everyone on the bridge went silent. Floating in the darkness was a creature that defied understanding. It looked like a living mountain, covered in smooth skin that shifted between deep purple and black. Strange patterns of light moved across its surface like slow lightning. The thing was easily the size of a small moon, but it moved with the grace of a whale swimming through an ocean. "Is it alive?" whispered Communications Officer Park So-min. Dr. Han Min-seo was already running scans from her science station. "The readings are incredible. Massive bioelectrical activity, complex organic structures. It's definitely alive, and it's definitely intelligent." Captain Dae-ho felt his heart pounding. After months of empty space, they had found something. But was it friend or enemy? "Red alert," he ordered. "All hands to battle stations." The ship's warning lights bathed the bridge in red. But as the crew prepared for possible combat, something strange happened. The creature didn't attack. Instead, it began to slow down, moving in a wide circle around their ship. "Captain, navigator," Lee Jun-ho called out urgently. "There's an asteroid field directly ahead of us. I didn't see it on the sensors before." Dae-ho looked at the view screen. Jun-ho was right. Dozens of large rocks floated in their path, some as big as buildings. If they had continued at their current speed, they would have crashed right into them. The massive creature had stopped them just in time. "It saved us," So-min said in amazement. As they watched, the creature moved closer to their ship. Long, flexible arms emerged from its bulk, each one thicker than their entire vessel. But instead of crushing the last dawn, the arms gently pushed the ship away from the dangerous asteroids. Dr. Min-seo's instruments went wild. "Captain, I'm reading massive electromagnetic pulses from the creature. They're not random. There are patterns, sequences, mathematical relationships. It's trying to communicate with us." The patterns of light on the creature's skin began to pulse in rhythm. Slow at first, then faster, like a heartbeat speeding up. Colors shifted from blue to green to yellow, creating waves that traveled across its enormous body. "It's beautiful," whispered young Kim Sua. The 16-year-old had come to the bridge with her violin, as she often did when people needed comfort. She stood at the observation window, staring at the light show with wonder instead of fear. Engineer Choi Hye-jin studied her power readings. "Sir, The creature is generating incredible amounts of energy, but it's not using any of it as a weapon. All the power seems to be going into those light patterns. Captain Deho made a decision that would change everything. So Min, open a channel, all frequencies. Channel open, sir. Deho stepped forward. This is Captain Kim Deho of the human vessel Last Dawn. We are peaceful travelers. Can you understand? Us. The creature's response was immediate. The light patterns on its skin exploded into brilliant displays of color. Waves of blue and gold raced across its surface. It was like watching the aurora borealis painted on a living canvas. The electromagnetic activity just increased tenfold, Minseo reported. It's definitely responding to us. Then something unexpected happened. Young Sua lifted her violin and began to play. The melody was simple and sad, a song her grandmother had taught her about missing home. The notes drifted through the ship's communication system and out into space. The creature's reaction was incredible. Its light patterns suddenly synchronized with the music. Each note Sua played created a corresponding flash of color on the creature's skin. When she played high notes, bright white lights danced across its surface. When she played low notes, deep red patterns pulsed like a slow heartbeat. It's responding to the music, Minseo said in wonder. Music is a universal language. For the next hour, they continued the strange conversation. Sua played different melodies, and the creature responded with its own light symphony. Sometimes it would repeat her patterns exactly. Other times it would create new variations, as if it was composing music made of light. More creatures began to appear on the sensors. Dozens of them, all massive, all beautiful, all pulsing with the same mysterious light. They moved in formation around the Last Dawn, not as predators, but as protectors. We're not alone anymore, Captain Deho said quietly. For the first time in months, the bridge crew smiled. They had found something in the darkness, something that wanted to communicate instead of destroy, something that had saved them from danger and welcomed them with light and music. The galaxy had thrown humanity into the void to die forgotten, but instead of death, they had found life. Ancient, beautiful, intelligent life that spoke in colors and songs. For weeks, Dr. Han Minseo barely slept. She spent every waking hour studying the signals from the massive creatures. Her small science lab became the most important room on the ship, filled with screens showing wave patterns, mathematical equations, and color charts. There's definitely a language here, she told Captain Kim Deho during one of their daily meetings. Every pulse of light has meaning. Every color change follows rules. It's like they're speaking in mathematics and music at the same time. Engineer Choi Hye-jin worked alongside her, modifying the ship's communication systems. She had never seen technology quite like what these creatures used. They didn't have metal computers or electronic circuits. Instead, they seemed to generate signals directly from their living tissue. It's bioelectric, Hye-jin explained while rewiring the main transmitter. They're using their entire bodies as communication devices, like living radio stations. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Young Kim Sua had been visiting the observation deck every day, playing her violin for the creatures. She noticed that they responded differently to different types of music. Happy songs made their lights dance quickly. Sad songs created slow, gentle patterns. Angry music caused sharp, jagged flashes. They feel emotions, she told Dr. Minseo excitedly. Just like us, when I play something beautiful, they get happy. When I play something scary, they get nervous. Minseo realized Sua was right. These weren't just intelligent creatures, they had feelings, personalities, individual responses to different stimuli. They were more like humans than anyone had imagined. The real breakthrough happened when Professor Yoon Tae-young, their linguist, started working with the patterns. He had spent his life studying how different species communicated, looking for common threads that connected all intelligent life. Look at this, he said, calling everyone to the main screen. When Sua plays a rising scale on her violin, the creature's lights move from bottom to top. When she plays a falling scale, the lights move from top to bottom. They're not just responding to sound, they're creating visual representations of concepts. Working together, the team began to decode the creature's language. High-pitched sounds meant up or above. Low sounds meant down or below. Bright colors indicated positive emotions. Dark colors showed negative feelings. Fast patterns suggested urgency or excitement. Slow patterns meant calm or peace. After a month of careful work, they managed their first real conversation. Dr. Mincio played a sequence of musical notes through the ship's transmitters. 3 low notes, followed by 3 high notes, repeated 3 times. The mathematical pattern for question. The creature's response was immediate. Its entire surface lit up with complex patterns that pulsed in rhythm. When the team decoded the message, they could hardly believe what they read. "We know you, we have been waiting." The creature had been expecting them. Over the following days, more messages came through. The creatures called themselves the Deep Wanderers, or sometimes the Star Singers. They had been living in the Terminus sector for millions of years, long before any of the current galactic civilizations existed. "We were the first," came one message, translated through hours of careful work. "We sang the first songs among the stars. We built the first homes in the dark places. But the young ones came, and they feared our voices." Captain Deho felt a chill as he understood. These creatures weren't random aliens they had stumbled across. They were exiles, just like humanity. The galaxy's first victims of fear and prejudice. The largest creature, which the team had started calling Elder Kethara, shared more of their history. Long ago, when the galaxy was younger, the Deep Wanderers had lived freely among the stars. They had helped younger species learn to travel between worlds. They had shared their knowledge of science and art and philosophy. But as time passed, the younger species grew afraid. The Deep Wanderers were too big, too powerful, too different. Their songs could be heard across entire star systems. Their movements could affect the gravity of nearby planets. Other species began to see them as threats instead of teachers. They gathered their fleets. Elder Cathara's message continued. They said we were dangerous. They said we could not live among the civilized worlds. They drove us to the edges, to the empty places, to the silence between songs. The parallels to humanity's exile were impossible to ignore. Different species, different times, but the same story. Fear of the unknown. Fear of those who were different. Fear of change. But the Deep Wanderers had learned something during their long exile. They had discovered that the dark spaces between stars were not empty. They were full of life that other species couldn't see. Energy that could be harvested. Resources that could sustain entire civilizations. "We are not prisoners here," Elder Kethara explained. "We are free. Free to sing our songs. Free to travel the deep paths. Free to be what we are without fear or judgment." Young Sua asked the question that everyone was thinking. She played a simple melody that the team had learned meant, "Will you help us?" Elder Kethara's response lit up the entire viewing deck. Colors swirled across its massive surface in patterns of joy and welcome. When translated, the message was clear. "You are our children now. We will teach you the songs of the deep places. We will show you how to live among the stars without chains. We will love you as the galaxy never could." For the first time since leaving Earth, Captain Deho felt hope. They had found family in the darkness. Ancient, wise, powerful family who understood what it meant to be cast out and forgotten. The Deep Wanderers had been waiting for them, and now finally humanity was home. The first time Captain Kim Deho stepped inside Elder Kethara, he could hardly believe his eyes. The massive creature had opened a section of its body, creating an entrance large enough for humans to walk through. Inside was a world unlike anything he had ever imagined. The walls were alive, pulsing gently with soft light. The air was warm and sweet, filled with oxygen that the creature generated naturally. The floor felt like walking on thick carpet, but it was actually living tissue that responded to each footstep with gentle support. "It's like being inside a living cathedral," whispered Dr. Han Min Seo as she followed the captain into the vast chamber. The ceiling stretched high above them, glowing with patterns of blue and gold light that moved like slow waves across the surface. Engineer Choi Hyejin was already taking measurements with her instruments. The air is perfect for humans. Temperature is exactly right. Gravity feels normal even though we're inside a creature floating in space. How is this possible? Elder Kithara's response came through the bioelectric communication system they had learned to use. We shape ourselves for those we love. Your bodies need warmth, air, solid ground. We provide. Over the following weeks, families began moving. From the overcrowded Last Dawn into the living spaces within the Deep Wanderers. Each creature could house thousands of humans comfortably, with rooms that grew and changed to meet their needs. Young Kim Sua was among the first to make the transition. She found a chamber that resonated perfectly with her violin music, amplifying the sound and creating visual patterns of light that danced with every note she played. "It's like the walls are singing with me," she told her parents with wonder. Farmer Kang Do-hyun made an incredible discovery in the lower chambers of Elder Kithara. The creature had created vast growing spaces filled with rich dark soil that seemed to pulse with life. When he planted seeds from earth, they grew faster and stronger than they ever had back home. "The soil is alive," he explained to the other colonists. "It knows what each plant needs and provides exactly the right nutrients. I've never seen vegetables grow like this." The symbiosis worked both ways. As humans settled into their new homes, they began helping the Deep Wanderers in return. The ancient creatures had lived alone for so long that many of their systems had started to fail. Their massive bodies needed maintenance that they couldn't perform themselves. Engineer Hee Jin discovered that the creatures' bioelectric systems sometimes developed problems similar to computer glitches. Using her knowledge of electronics, she learned to work with the living circuits, repairing damaged pathways and improving efficiency. "It's like fixing a computer made of living tissue," she explained to her team. "The principles are the same, but everything is organic instead of metal." Dr. Minzeo found that the creatures suffered from something like space parasites, tiny organisms that attached to their outer surfaces and drained their energy. Humans were perfectly sized to remove these parasites, traveling across the creatures' surfaces in specially designed suits and cleaning away the harmful organisms. "We're like the small fish that clean the big whales," she told Captain Deho. "They provide us with homes and protection. We help keep them healthy." The most amazing discovery came from artist Lee Yuna. She had always loved to paint, but inside Elder Kithara, her artwork took on a life of its own. The living walls absorbed her paintings, incorporating the colors and patterns into their own bioluminescent displays. "My art has become part of the creature itself," she said with tears of joy. "Every painting I create becomes part of its skin, part of its beauty that other Deep Wanderers can see across the stars." Musician Park Sung-ho worked with young Sua to create new forms of music that combined human instruments with the creature's natural harmonics. Their concerts became galaxy-wide events, with songs that could be heard by Deep Wanderers scattered across hundreds of light years. The children adapted fastest of all. 10-year-old Park Min-ho learned to navigate the bio-passages inside the creatures better than adults who had lived their whole lives on metal ships. He could feel the creature's moods, predict when it was about to change direction, and even communicate with it through touch. "The walls tell me things," he explained to his amazed parents. "They show me pictures of where we're going and what we'll see." Captain Deho established the first human settlement inside Elder Kithara, which they named New Haven. Streets made of living coral connected homes that breathed with the rhythm of the creature's heartbeat. Gardens grew in zero gravity, their roots intertwining with the creature's nervous system. Markets sold food that tasted better than anything from Earth, grown in the living soil of their new world. The transformation was remarkable. The Deep Wanderers, who had been alone and dying for millions of years, began to heal. Their bioluminescent patterns grew brighter. Their songs became more complex and beautiful. Some even began to reproduce for the first time in centuries, creating new generations of creatures who would grow up knowing humans as family. "We were dying," Elder Kithara explained to the humans. "Alone in the dark, forgotten by time. But you brought us life again. You brought us purpose. You brought us joy. In return, humanity found something they had never known they were missing. Not just survival, but belonging. Not just a place to live, but a home that loved them back. The Deep Wanderers didn't just provide shelter, they provided acceptance, understanding, and unconditional love. The galaxy had cast them out as monsters. But in the darkness between stars, they had found family. 5 years had passed since humanity entered the Terminus sector. The Galactic Consortium had long assumed the troublesome humans were dead, just like all the other exiled species before them. But strange reports began reaching the council chambers on distant worlds. Admiral Zethkol of the Consortium fleet studied the data with growing concern. Energy signatures unlike anything in their databases, electromagnetic patterns that suggested massive coordinated movement, and most disturbing of all, signals that seemed to be coming from creatures thought extinct for millions of years. "Impossible," muttered Council Member Vexron, her 4 eyes scanning the reports. "The Deep Wanderers died out eons ago. Our ancestors made sure of that." But the readings didn't lie. Something was moving in the Terminus sector. Something big. Admiral Zethkol assembled a fleet of 12 warships, the largest force the Consortium had sent to the outer regions in decades. Their mission was simple: investigate the disturbances and eliminate any threats to galactic peace. As the fleet approached the Terminus boundary, their sensors began picking up impossible readings. Captain Kim Dae-ho, now Admiral of the Human Leviathan Alliance, stood in the Bio-Neural Command Center deep inside Elder Cathara. The walls pulsed with gentle light, and he could feel the ancient creature's calm strength flowing through the living corridors. "Admiral?" called Communications Officer Park So-min, her station now a beautiful fusion of human technology and bioelectric systems. Consortium fleet detected, 12 ships, all armed. Around the command center, other Deep Wanderers could be seen through the transparent walls. Hundreds of them, each one carrying thousands of humans in their living cities. Children played in gardens that grew in zero gravity. Artists painted murals that became part of the creature's skin. Musicians filled the void with songs that traveled between stars. "Open a channel," Dae-ho ordered. The familiar voice of Admiral Zethkol crackled through the speakers. "This is Admiral Zethkol of the Galactic Consortium. Humans of the vessel Last Dawn, you will surrender immediately for processing and relocation." Dae-ho smiled. The Consortium still thought they were dealing with the same broken refugees who had been exiled years ago. They had no idea what humanity had become. "This is Admiral Kim Dae-ho of the Human Leviathan Alliance," he replied calmly. "We are no longer the people you banished. We have found our true family among the stars." Through the bio-neural connection, Dae-ho could feel Elder Cathara's emotions. The ancient creature was not angry or afraid. Instead, it felt something like sadness for the small, frightened beings in their metal ships who had never learned to love what was different. The response came not as words, but as music. Every Deep Wanderer in the sector began to sing at once, their bioluminescent patterns synchronized into a massive display of light and color that painted the darkness. The song told the story of 2 civilizations cast into exile, of friendship born in the void, of love that grew stronger than fear. The harmonic frequency was so powerful that every ship in the galaxy could detect it. On distant worlds, beings stopped what they were doing to listen to the haunting melody that seemed to come from the stars themselves. It spoke of ancient wisdom and new hope, of outcasts who had found each other in the darkness. Admiral Zethkol's fleet found itself surrounded by beauty instead of weapons. The Deep Wanderers moved in perfect formation, their massive bodies creating patterns of light that stretched across space. Some were the size of small moons, others even larger, all of them pulsing with the rhythm of the great song. Young Kim Soo-ah, now 21, and the first human to master the deep song, stood at the heart of the performance. Her violin sang, with the voices of creatures older than civilization, weaving human melody into their ancient harmonies. "By the void," whispered one of Zethkol's officers. "What have they become?" Inside the living cities, human children who had grown up among the Deep Wanderers pressed their hands to the transparent walls, their eyes bright with wonder. They had never known fear of their alien family. To them, this was simply home. Engineer Choi Hee-jin worked at her bioelectric station, monitoring the song's effect on the Consortium fleet. Admiral, their weapon systems are shutting down. The harmonic frequency is interfering with their electronics. But it wasn't an attack. The Deep Wanderer's song was offering something the galaxy had forgotten: forgiveness. Even for those who had wronged them, even for those who had driven them into exile, they offered understanding and peace. The song began to fade, leaving the void filled with gentle light from the creature's patterns. Admiral Zethkol's fleet hung motionless in space, their crews stunned by what they had witnessed. "You cast us out because you feared what we might become," Admiral Deho said into the silence. "You were right to fear, but not for the reasons you thought. We became something you could never understand. We became family." The consortium fleet began to retreat, carrying news that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Humanity had not died in exile. They had evolved into something unprecedented, a civilization that chose love over conquest, cooperation over domination, acceptance over fear. In the years that followed, other exiled species found their way to the Deep Wanderers. The Terminus sector became a beacon of hope for the unwanted and misunderstood, a place where difference was celebrated instead of feared. And at the heart of it all, the bond between humanity and the Deep Wanderers grew stronger with each passing day. The ancient creatures had loved them when no one else would, and humans had given them something they thought lost forever: a future filled with joy, purpose, and family. The galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps, for the first time in eons, that was exactly what it needed.